All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Born to Goon channel. Today, guys, we're going to do something just a little bit different. We're going to go the educational route with this video. Now, I had intentions on shooting the customary single tight rocky track where I cartwheel my 500-pound Triumph Tiger into oblivion video. I know you guys like those, and I am going to shoot those videos. But before I realize I have a situation, and that situation is the stones on this bike need to be replaced. So I just got a set of new Shinko 804 805s that I'm going to put on it. Then before I shot the video, I'm like, why don't I just shoot a video about how to change your motorcycle tire? And I don't care if you got a cruiser, a sport bike, an adventure bike, a mini bike, a dirt bike. I'm going to show you how you can change it. I'm going to show you how you can change your tire anywhere. On a rock, on the side of a hill, in a bush, on the side of the road, no matter where you are, how to change your tire. Now, it's important that every motorcyclist knows how to do this, or at least understands how to do this to some aspect. And that's why I'm doing the video. Because first of all, if you own a bike for a long period of time, it's expensive to constantly pay for someone to change your tires. Here in California, it's like $25, $30. So you're looking at $50 to $60 a set for someone to change it. Now, if you're rich, you don't give a damn, and you don't want to mess with it, that's cool. I've gone that route before. But if you want to save a little money, I'm going to show you how you change your tire. But I think the more important part of this is if you ride long enough, trust me, if it hasn't happened already, it will. If you ride long enough, you will find yourself some point stranded because of your tires. You will either hit a nail or something like that and need to plug the tire on the side of the road while you're riding. Or more importantly, for some of us that do also adventure riding, we go deep off grid, you will find yourself way off the grid with either a damaged tire that needs to be replaced or repaired, or you have punctured a tube, for the ones of us has tube tires like this one, and you'll need to patch that tube and partially remove the tire or completely remove the tire to access the tube. So it's important for everybody to at least know how to do that. Now, so some of you might be afraid and be intimidated, but look, if you just have a little bit of patience, you just clear your mind and you take your time, it's actually pretty easy to do this. So the first thing that has to be done, obviously, is you need to remove the tire, and we'll start from the front of the tire. Now, just about every tire is going to have the same type of mounting construction to it. They're going to have a set of pinch bolts. This one has it just on one side. Some will have them on both sides, but this one only has it on one. And then you will have your axle, and then you'll have your brakes. Now, some of these newer bikes, you're able to remove the tire while still keeping the brake calipers on. I like to remove them. It's easy to take it off that way. A little bit harder to put it on while the brake calipers are still mounted to the bike. So let's talk about how to lift this bike up off of the ground and remove these tires. Now, if you're doing this from the comfort of your garage, you can use a stand. If you have an adventure bike with a center stand or a motorcycle that has a center stand and you're broken down on the side of the road, you can use that. But for this demonstration, I want to put ourselves in, let's say, a worst predicament, because if we can conquer that, then everything we do after that is just simple. My preferred method, if I'm deep off trail or off grid somewhere and I need to replace the tube, patch the tube, or repair a damaged tire, is I like to lean the bike over. Now, if you have a smaller dual sport bike or a smaller trail bike or something like that that's like 350 pounds or lighter, just gently lay it over on its side, and this will give you access to both front and rear tires. Now, on a bigger bike like this, or the really big adventure bikes, you don't want to do that. You've seen these videos before where I've dropped this thing and it's taken me a long time to pick it back up, so I don't want to do that. In that case, what I look for is a nice little hillside where I can just lean it against the bank. Preferably, it'll have some sort of divot or dip in it where I can reach my hands up underneath and pop out the axle. Now, the good thing about the design of this bike is it's leaned over here on the kickstand, and the exit of the axle shaft comes out this way. So it's nice. You can just kind of prop it up on its stand. So even if you don't want to lean it all the way over, you can just kind of push it up against the bank, maybe even just stick a couple of rocks underneath the rear tire or underneath the belly pan of the bike, and that should support the tire enough to get it underneath of it. And there you go, my fellow goons, the finished product. Yes, it's goonish. Yes, it's a little ghetto, but sometimes this is what it calls for. You got to make do with what you have, but it's functional. I got access to the rear wheel. I've got access to the front wheel. And if you notice, I turn the wheels just to the side here, so I've got plenty of room to get a tool or a hammer if I need to tap out the axle. And it's just perfect that way. Now, one thing to note, that if you have a full tank of gas or when you tip them over, sometimes they have a tendency to drip a little out of the overflow. So if you're a smoker, do not smoke while you do this. So the next thing is, I'll set this camera back up, and we'll go ahead and we will remove the brake caliper and the axle. And there it is. Tire is off. All right, so now comes for the fun part, which is breaking the bead on this tire. This is what a lot of people struggle with or they fight with, and I'm going to show you how you do that. One thing I want to mention before I start, this is the front tire, and one of the disadvantages that the front tire has over the rear tire is a lot of our motorcycles nowadays have two different discs on them, on each side. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos where people just throw these things down real tight and they'll scrape them across the floor. Keep in mind, these discs are sensitive and they're very expensive to replace. You don't want to get up on top of this and start jumping up and down on it to break the bead. You're going to end up bending your disc. If you're out somewhere where the ground is rough, like here, put something down to make sure you protect that disc. If you're doing it in your garage, maybe put it over top of a garbage can or something. But be cognizant of protecting these discs. They're very sensitive and they're very easy to bend. So as you're going through this, you don't want to be pressing down. You don't want to be giving it a lot of force. Be gentle on these discs. Now the tools I use is I have two sets. I use these Motion Pro Bead Pros. They're nice little bead breakers. I'll show you how they work. I have a small travel set which is aluminum, and then I have a bigger set for leverage when I'm doing things like sport bikes or something like that. And then I always carry a couple of these nice little rim protectors to make sure that we just don't damage everything up. So all we need to do here is just kind of walk around the tire. You put these in here like this. This first one goes in here. You'll see there's a little tongue on it. This kind of goes in there right there like that. And you just sort of clamp them here at first. And there you go. And you just start working your way around the tire. Remember, be very careful about your discs. You don't want to break your discs. Just sometimes you have to be a little patient. Didn't take much to break that one there, did it? And then just walk around the tire slightly. Now, be careful not to jam it in there too much. Just kind of walk yourself around. Don't put your big weight on it yet. If you want to support one side with your knee, do that. But remember, be very careful about that. There you go. The rest will come right off. All right, and then we'll make sure we got the other side. Now, if you have a bike that only has one disc, start out on the other side of it. Sometimes, depending on the tire, especially the rear is going to be real hard to break the bead on. So, there you go. You heard that one there already. Front tires are usually pretty easy, but some of these rear tires, yeah, that one come right off with my hand. Okay. And then just slowly nurse the few over top, and then once you get it over top of the lip, then you can, like that there, then you're good to go with the rest of them here. Probably could use one more. Remember, you don't have to crank it all the way over. Just slightly lift it up like that, and then let it slide. Just let it slide over the lip like that, and gently pull your tool out. Once we've got that far, we can remove the base one, and then we can work our way around the rest of the tire. And then remember, be careful about your disc right there. Now once you get a certain amount of it off like this, then you can just kind of walk around and just pull the rest. This again ensures that you don't get any additional punctures. And just pull it off of the bike if you're strong enough. Sometimes you still have to work them. These things can be so tight, huh? But don't be afraid to ask for help. Now that the first piece of the tire is off, I want to make sure I just reach up in here, get my tube, try to get my tube out of here. Now, if all you needed to do is change or patch a tube, all you simply have to do is find the leak, patch it, and stick it right back in there. You don't need to do any extra work. In this case, we're going to change the whole tire. Now, the next thing we want to do is just flip this over. And we're going to have to get this off to the other side. So what I have to do is I have to stick this tool in here, just like this. And I don't know if you can see it. I will have to pry it over the other way. Again, I don't want to damage up my rim here. I'll make a big old mess out of it. So we'll use our little trusty Motion Pro plastic. If you don't want to spend a couple bucks for the Motion Pro, guys, just use a sock, use a rag, use a towel, and just start working this thing over the other side. Now here you can get a little bit more leverage. Just push it this way. Get that thing down. And just start slowly pressing here a little bit. Let's get our other tool here. Get some help. Put a little leverage in there. Start working the tire off. And then once you get a little bit of here, you can start pushing it off. Just if you're at home, you can use like a rubber mallet and put it, but just work it off here gently with your hands. And there you go. Tire is off. Real quickly, before you put the other one on, just run around here real quick and inspect. Make sure you don't have any shavings, any loose pieces of metal. And then now, we're ready to put the other tire on. The next thing we want to do is get our new tires out. Now that we got this out of the child-proof plastic, one thing you have to pay attention to here, and so easy to overlook, is that every single tire will have a rotation mark. This one says rotation front is this direction. Some will be a little bit more subtle and they'll just have arrows. Make sure you do this. This is how the tire is supposed to go on your bike. This is where you will get the maximum performance. Now, it seems like it's logical and it's easy, but trust me, so many times we get sidetracked, especially if we break down on the side of the road or something like that, and we panic or we're frustrated, we get upset, we try to rush the project. So easy to overlook this. I've done that several times. Now, one thing that I like to do as well is do some sort of marking on the rim while I'm working in case I get distracted. I always put an arrow like this. I know it looks like a penis, but I feel like a penis if I come back and this is backwards or something like that. So make sure you kind of put that there. You can just draw a line on. And then this is the direction and how the tire should sit on the rim with the rotation, following the rotation of the rim. Now, several different ways that people like to do this when they put them on. Soap and water works really well. I like to use WD-40. If you're stuck out in the woods and you don't have either, it doesn't make a difference. It'll be just slightly harder. It's not that much of an advantage, but a little bit of an advantage. So what I like to do here is just run a little bit here on the insides of the tire, just to give it a nice little bit of lube so it slides over the rim. Nice and easy. So we'll put it there. Remember, be careful about your and you just try to push down as much as you can with your fingers and then start using your tools. Now once the tube is in, what I like to do is just put a little bit of air in that tube. Why? Because I don't want to pinch it. So let's say that we are out on the road. Just put a little here. We're going to use a standard old bicycle pump that I travel with. Of course, if you're at the luxury of your home, then feel free to use an air compressor. And then we're going to do the same thing here, just a little lube on the outside. Just so that goes on nice and easy. Make sure everything's all tucked in. I'm going to start on this side. Okay. Now when you get to the end, this is going to be the hardest part. Especially if you're doing some of those Dakar style tires or hard off-road tires that have an extremely hard carcass. They're going to be a little bit hard to stretch here. Just be patient with the tire. What I like to do is get in there and already get my tools set in there. That way I don't have to dig back through. Remember, be gentle on your rim. We'll just straddle it this way. There you go. And she's done. Now from here, all we have to do is pump it back up. We should be good to go. Now if you have to use a hand pump or one of the smaller compressor pumps that you may carry with you when you travel, it may be hard to actually pop this bead. One thing that helps is to get this tire to sit in real nice is to just pound it with a bunch of pressure, 35, 40, maybe even 45 until you hear it pop. If you have an air compressor, that's what I like to do. If you have to use a hand pump, that's going to be real hard, but sometimes that's what duty calls. So we'll pump this up, put it back on the bike. So what we'll do here is go ahead and mount the tire. We'll just put the axle in, tighten up the pinch bolts, then we can lift the bike back up and put it in a better position before we can go ahead and remount these brake calipers. And there it is. All we need to do now is lift up the bike, button up the brake calipers, and there it is. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have a different way to do this, you want to critique me, you have suggestions, comments, compliments, or quarrels, just put them down in the comment box. Thanks for watching the Born Lagoon channel.